Hello YouTube fans, you Star Trek fans out there. It's another review from Star Trek 99. Now I realise I have been away for, I think it's roughly a year. Yeah, roughly about a year, because the last one I remember doing, I was discussing about the USS Voyager. I was discussing about the process of painting her and doing the LED lighting inside of her. At the moment I have been doing obviously my exams. I was also been away doing other things. I just haven't got round to doing Voyager and also doing reviews, which is kind of selfish of me. So, being a YouTube subscriber, I have been keeping up to date with things going on YouTube and what's been happening. So, I haven't been away too much, but just been away from doing my reviews, which is not a very good thing of me being a subscriber. Anyway, the year is obviously now 2013, and as you've not guessed already, the new Star Trek film's coming out, which hence my setup for this video, which is basing around, we're going to obviously talk about the 2009 film, story behind that, how it was, flaws in it, and how it might hopefully, we might learn from his mistakes, from obviously not liking it so much, and also slight problems with it. But hopefully we'll learn from what we didn't like, and hopefully J.J. Abrams has taken it into account, and hopefully has now produced a better and more obviously unflawed storyline. But I think what it mainly was the fact of us having to get used to an alternate reality Star Trek, more or less not being around the one of Dr. McCoy, Spock, Kirk, and the rest of the Enterprise crew. I have no idea why I just said McCoy first, not Kirk. Unusual. Anyway, the original film, came out in 2009, as you all remember, starring Chris Pine as Captain Kirk. The film was based solely on being an alternate storyline to the characters of how they met and how everything took place in the timeline. It started out with us seeing the USS Kelvin, which was on usual patrol, and then seeing a lightning storm in space, and then from there we saw then the Narada come out and then attack the USS Kelvin. We then saw the USS Kelvin crew abandoning ship because obviously she was no match for her being an early 21st century design starship to a obviously 24th century, although it was a mining ship, a much more advanced vessel compared to her. We met the character George Kirk, who was a very fine officer indeed, obviously only being commanded his ship for a very short period of time. We then saw his wife give birth to Kirk, obviously, and then obviously have his last few moments with her, talking to her over the communication channel. He then sadly died, sacrificing himself to save the rest of the crew. We then got introduced to Spock, being a young boy, and how he was troubled and tormented at school for being obviously half Vulcan and half human. We then were introduced to Kirk, being a troublesome young man of his time. We also got to see his older brother, which was quite a good, in fact, actually a good moment to see. We never really saw him much apart from the episode, apart from the actual original episodes. Well, then in that episode we saw him dead. It was a crappy way to meet him. Oh, and from there we then saw Spock then get accepted into the Vulcan Science Academy, then decline to go and join Starfleet. We then saw obviously Kirk in a bar meeting Uhura, which was actually a very good scene because that was quite an interesting way to see them two meet for the first time. Pike obviously then interrupting them whilst Kirk was in a fight against obviously I think it was 4 or 5 security guards. Not the best kind of thing really. Then obviously Pike tells him Starfleet could use him because he's obviously is being like he is, officers are a dying breed of like obviously him. So he then joins Starfleet. We then see Kirk obviously jumps to the future because obviously Kirk, we can't really see him go through Starfleet because it would get a bit boring after a while. But obviously Kirk goes to the Enterprise shipyards, goes to Shuttlecraft, so some years later. We then see Kirk join, obviously in Starfleet, do the Kobayashi Maru scene where he cheats. We then see them go to Vulcan and just meet Nero for the first time. Captain Pike is then kidnapped. Kirk obviously isn't in command of the Enterprise, he's only been promoted to first officer at this moment in time. He's then marooned on Delta Vega, where he then meets Scotty, Simon Pegg. And then he then I almost forgot, he also meets Leonard Nimoy, Spock, the original, who was also marooned there by Nero before he destroyed Vulcan. We then go to aboard the Enterprise, where Scotty and Kirk beam aboard. Then have to devise then they get captured. Spock relinquishes command on the grounds of being unfit for command. Kirk then takes command of the Enterprise, where they then, instead of rendezvousing with the fleet, they then turn about to attack. Well, not turn about, obviously go to a different direction and go to one of Saturn's rings. I think it is. I haven't watched the movie in a couple of months. I'm a bit rusty. I've been mainly focusing on the Next Generation movies at the moment. Again, it's the rings, I think, of Saturn, and then the Enterprise rises out that great dramatic scene of coming out of the debris and space of the inside the ring. Kirk and Spock then beam aboard Narada, rescue Captain Pike, and steal the black hole device, along with the other 24th century designed ship. They then stop Nero from drilling a hole in the middle of Earth. The drill is then destroyed. Spock then jumps to warp, where leading the Narada into a trap where the Enterprise is waiting. They go into a big fight. The Narada and the Enterprise for a little while. Well, actually not really a fight, more the Enterprise kind of saving Spock's ass. Kirk and Spock then beam back aboard the Enterprise, after which the Narada is caught between a black hole because Spock has plunged the ship into Nero's ship, which has therefore triggered the red matter to all fuse together, make a giant black hole. The Enterprise is then stuck in that's being pulled in, if you will. And the Enterprise then gets released thanks to the brilliant foretell of the antimatter explosion of the warp core being jettisoned in, although it's many little tiny warp cores, which is quite weird. Then fourth, the explosion where the Enterprise is then saved, and then we then jump straight to the ceremony where Kirk is promoted to captain, assumes command of Enterprise. Spock then says, obviously, the original intro for Star Trek of Space the Final Frontier, which is a great moment, and the Enterprise then jumps to warp, and then that was the end of that movie. That was a brief going over. People didn't really enjoy the movie, down to the fact of it being an alternate movie. People didn't like it because basically everything after Captain Archer's time was kind of messed up. So people didn't really agree with it. But then people kind of grown on it and people didn't mind it. I mean, me being a Trekkie myself, I liked it. I know quite a bunch of other Star Trek fans that liked it. It was good. Just it didn't really. And also the design of the Enterprise put this Enterprise, you see here, being bigger than the Enterprise E, which kind of messes the whole scale up with Star Trek from the time. But obviously now we have the new film coming out, which will be a very interesting film to see indeed, because of the fact of it being a whole new episode, a whole new movie to see the crew going on one again. This one we see obviously the original cast with the additional 2 new actors, actor and actresses. We also we have an actress who plays Dr. Carol Marcus. I can't quite remember her name off the top of my head, but we also do have Benedict Cumberbatch from the classic BBC series of Sherlock. Just found the DVD here. There we go. It's a quick glimpse, people can't remember. Sherlock. he will be playing obviously the bad guy in this movie of John Harrison, which will be a very interesting one to see indeed. Um, People are obviously most likely to see the trailers. The latest trailer we see is of him obviously having a great big massive ship, and I think it's called USS Vengeance. It's a massive great big starship. It dwarfs the Enterprise. I mean, just to think about it, it's like putting a grapefruit as being his ship and then a pea for the Enterprise. It's that kind of size. It's massive. It's like I'm kind of referring it to as the Nemesis battle. It's going to be a very interesting one to see, I think, on the movie. This one, it's going to be very, very different. I mean, we've seen clips of different scenes from the movie. I mean, there's one scene where we have Chekhov in a red shirt. I don't quite know what's happening in this one, but obviously, I presume Chekhov, obviously, for some bizarre reason, having to wear a red shirt. Where maybe he spills coffee down his shirt and there's no yellow shirts left. Who knows? Maybe he does. But in this one, he's just wearing a red shirt for a change, which makes a difference. The toy line for the new Star Trek film will sadly not be covered by, as I presume you've all guessed, it will not be now covered by Playmates. There are two different companies doing it. I think it's a kind of Lego-like company. They're doing the Star Trek ones. There's also another company doing it. I can't remember what they are very hard and what they're actually doing for it, but they're doing it. Sadly, Playmates aren't going to be doing it, and I did get confirmation back I think it was about a couple of months back now, where I emailed them. I think it was sometime last year, about August time. I emailed them. I meant to do a review about it. They emailed me saying they won't actually be able to do. Well, they're actually not saying they won't be able to do, but they won't. They are pretty sure they won't be doing the Star Trek toy line this year because of the fact of it going to someone else, which is kind of annoying because he did such a brilliant job with the ships, the figures, the play sets, and the phasers. They did such a nice job. It's just going to be annoying that they're not going to be out again this year, and I really did like them. I would like to do them again, but to be fair, they can't really do a lot more to them this year unless you're going to just. They can only pick one out. Obviously, the two new characters on it. That's about it, rough. There's not really much else they could do for it, really. I suppose it's probably best someone else probably doing something else with the actual toy line. There wasn't really a huge amount they could probably have done with it. What else is cracking with the films? Obviously, we have Star Trek, along with other ones I'll probably be doing reviews about. Is Iron Man. That comes out. Actually, it's come out today. Iron Man 3 with Robert Downey Jr. That looks very interesting. This one. Yeah, there's going to be quite a good branch of different films coming out this year. But the one I'm going to be looking forward to seeing the most is obviously Star Trek. I will then be doing a review again, probably once seeing the movie. I won't give too much away because I don't want to be a spoiler for other people going to see it. But I will try and I'll give it a good rate. I'll give it a rating. Obviously, for people who would like to see it and people aren't quite sure, still want the extra bit saying, is it going to be worth seeing? I will put a rating on it saying, obviously it's going to be anywhere from like 10 out of 10, from like a 1 out of 10. I'll do different ratings on like quality, storyline, graphics, but I don't think graphics and the computer generated images are going to be a problem because in the last film they weren't a problem, and that was just in 2D. And this is going to be in 3D, so it's even better this year with the Star Trek film. It's going to be a really, really good one this year. But again, yeah, it's been a bit of a journey waiting for the new Star Trek film, but it's finally come out. I'm happy to see another one. I bought my ticket to go and see it at the Cineworld, and I just can't wait to go see it. It's going to be a really good one. Really interesting one to go see. I'll probably do another review later of the game because obviously with getting the game, I was then buying the game, which I'll be picking up tomorrow because it's the 26th tomorrow, and that's when the game comes out. I get a ticket to go and see the film, which is going to be great. So I would have pre-booked my ticket anyway, but with pre-ordering the game, I kind of killed two birds with one stone, which is a bonus. So that's what I'll be doing my review on next. We'll probably over some time in the weeks to follow. So yeah, sorry it's been a while, but thank you for tuning in and watching. I will be doing hopefully many more to come of videos and different various items of Star Trek, Doctor Who, Ghostbusters and other movies. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon. Good day to you.